All right, good evening and welcome to Disagree to Disagree. We have Daryl Fisher joining us.
What's up?
DJ Tones.
What up?
And joining us for the first time, my man, Fernando.
From San Diego, California.
From San Diego. That's Spanish for something?
I don't know, but they do go by the whale's vagina sometimes.
Yes.
Oh, man, Fern, it's nice to have you. I haven't talked to you in a while. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Just working, getting by in without snow. Not a bad combination.
Right. That's always a good situation. No snow.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So here we are, second podcast. Fernando's joining us for the first time, and what do we want to start with? Just throw a topic out there. What do we want to talk about right now? NBA. I'll throw it out there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Let's talk NBA.
That's a fantastic way to start the show, but what do you guys want to talk about? I'll tell you what you're going to talk about.
Exactly. So we'll talk about the NBA. We got conference finals going on right now between the Heat and Raptors, which that one will be wrapped up in 2 games. And you got the
Is that already wrapped up?
well, essentially. and you got the Thunder and the Warriors, which potentially could go 7 games. I mean, what do you guys think? Picks on that. Fernando, we'll start with you.
Well, you said Heat Raptors, but it's actually Cavaliers Raptors.
Hey, same thing.
All right, I just want to make sure we're clear on that. I think the Heat will be one of the first teams to go 12-0 to reach the finals and then get swept by the Warriors.
You said the Heat.
You said Heat too, so I love
nothing else. It seems like it's already been predetermined, so I don't even have any other. There's like nothing else.
Right.
What's the vibe out there, Fernando, when it comes to the Golden State Warriors and what you've seen so far on the West Coast?
I think if you're a Laker fan, you want them to lose, but pretty much everyone else wants it. Yeah, they're all. They seem to be cheering for them out here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you look at what happened in the last game, guys, and Oklahoma City, they had a little bit of confidence really taking it to the Warriors in game number 1. In the second game, you saw Steven Adams get hurt, and that really minimized the ability for the Oklahoma City Thunder to really hash out and get outside and do what they did in game number 1. And it also helps when you have Steph Curry pouring in double-digit points in one quarter.
Daryl?
The weirdest thing was, and they brought this up, I think, on ESPN Radio yesterday, with the fact that, when you have teams like the Warriors and Thunder meeting up, and they scored well below their average for a half in the game the other night, and you just, I guess, don't really see that. Even though, again, what was it? It was 118 or 118 to 91. And again, the fact that you have these 2 teams matching up here out in with Golden State again, the weirdest thing for me is the disappearance that they had of Kevin Durant in the second half of that game on Wednesday night. He had, I think, 6 points, in the second half. He came out, had 21, I think, in the first. Ends up ending with, 27, just so 6-7 points maybe in the second half. His disappearance, I think if they find a way to neutralize him, minimize him, if he doesn't step up, the criticism is, well, okay, you're the next one up to win a title. And if he's not, then I'm definitely if he's not going to take that chance, I'm thinking Golden State. Cleveland, I feel, is already a lock. I feel that I've heard this discussion. To an extent, I agree with it, but maybe it's because they don't necessarily have the star power. But I think LeBron has better talent around him now than when he first joined and had that debacle of the big 3 down in Miami.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that also.
Yeah, I'm going to say Warriors all the way. I just don't think they can be beat. Cleveland, whatever. I mean, I don't know. I'm just when Steph Curry's healthy, the Warriors aren't beatable right now, and that's how I feel. But let's talk. 2017. I say Bucks versus Timberwolves in the finals, and for Fernando, this one's for you, Mark Madsen, MVP. But. Maybe Latrell Sprewell.
Mark Madsen, the president.
Hey, Fern, you're only with us a short time tonight. We appreciate you here. But what was your take on the Vikings draft? Because I mean, you're a little bit of a Vikings fan, right, or no?
Yeah, I kind of go a little insane when I watch those games.
Yeah, but
Mainly in a negative way.
But when you throw the remote, do you miss wide left?
Oh man!
Well, luckily it wasn't wide right like Gary Anderson. So at least they're missing on the other side of the upright.
But what I mean, you look at your team, Fernando, and the Vikings, and I thought that they did pretty well in the draft, and they addressed the needs that they really needed to do and work on.
I agree. I think they could have. I'm going to say a top 3 defense.
Yeah,
it's going to be.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, with that D. I mean, offense will get better with. I do everything. I mean, I'm going to say they're going to do the back-to-back division titles easily. Everyone thinks the Packers will be back up there with Jordy Nelson coming back, but I think that's a bunch. I think that's a bunch of crap. Only Adrian Peterson can come back from an ACL tear and tear up the league. So Jordy Nelson is not Adrian Peterson.
Well, that's very true. And as long as Jay Cutler is still the quarterback of the Bears, they will not win the division. I'm going to call that. I know, Tones, you're going to disagree, but that's why we do this show. Okay.
I think what the Bears did though in the draft. You talk about the draft and. The Bears did a really good job of addressing the needs, that, except for left tackle. I really thought that they could have gone for a left tackle, but it just wasn't in the cards. But they addressed their needs when it comes to getting younger and having a lot of speed and length. That's what they desperately needed on the defensive end, and I think that's what they addressed. And a lot of competition with the Bears when it comes to linebackers, when it comes to safeties, and also cornerbacks. And competition only breeds good things for the Bears. Do I think that they'll get to the upper echelon of the conference? I don't think so. But, you never know. That's why they play it on Sunday.
Now, Fern, do you think the Vikings are going to make a good playoff run, or is it going to be a one-and-done again?
I would think they would learn from the mistakes from the previous. Again, the offense should be a lot better than it was this last year. I think Teddy Two Gloves is coming into his own. He had a great last 4 games of the regular season. Finished 3-1, almost won that game in Arizona, which was kind of like the reboot of the end of the year. But I think offense will be better, especially with new receivers. Hey, we got that German guy. Who knows? I'm really excited to see that guy. I don't know how he'll do, but because they did compare the talent in the German football league versus anything in American. It's like a Division III college is what he was up against.
Oh, okay.
So his the competitive level is not there. So if he can step it up, I'd like to see what a 6'4" and a 4.4 40 can do in an NFL game.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the build, and he's fast. It's you got to do something. You can use speed for something, right?
Well, yeah, and especially, Cordell Patterson, this is his last year in Minnesota, so if anything, he can just do kickoff returns at first, and then they can put him in somewhere. Hell, we can just put him at linebacker, too. He's big enough.
Big guy. He is a big guy. But they'll be really useful when it comes to helping Teddy Bridgewater over the middle if he can acclimate himself to the offense.
Well, I think Treadwell will do that as well because, again, he doesn't not the fastest guy, but that speed. He's kind of like, I've heard, they compare him to Michael Irvin a lot, but I've heard Brandon Marshall as well because Marshall wasn't fast, but he knew how to position himself to go up for the ball.
No, as long as he's not a head case like both of those guys,
Yeah. So far, he seems to be a soft-spoken individual, so I'm hoping he's, not the ego type that they usually are.
Well, stick with Minnesota sports while we have you still, Fernando. And are you ready to throw in the white flag for the Twins yet?
I'm going to at least wait until the 4th of July.
You're going to wait that long?
At least. Yeah, because last year they did the same thing. They were the last team to get a win, and then they went on a tear in May, and then they almost finished second place. They did way better than they should have. Yeah. So I'm thinking they might be able to put something together. My hopes are very low for that. But I'll throw it. I mean, I've watched maybe one game this year so far. They've been very not fun to watch.
Well, I will agree with you on the fact that they're not fun to watch. Just looking at the standings alone, they are 9 full games behind Detroit, who's in 4th place in the AL Central. They are 14 and a half out of first place.
Pretty out, and we're only in May. It's only May 20th.
Yeah. So you realize when you look at the rest of the AL Central, you got the White Sox 25 and 16. They're leading it. Cleveland's 2.5 behind. The Indians are 21 and 17. Kansas City, the defending champs, are 4.5 games back at an even 500, 20 and 20. Detroit just under 500 at 19-21. They're 5.5 back. There's 50 feet of crap, and then there's Minnesota, who's 10-30, 14.5 games back. I just want to look real quick at
and they're 12 games out of the wild card.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, see, there's plenty of games left. They still got 100 games to go. They could easily come back.
Just
you never know. You can always have a hot month, and a lot of teams, especially with you talk about the Central. A lot of those teams can fall back to earth. You look at the White Sox; they don't have a fourth and fifth starter right now. You think that Matt Latos is going to help that team? I don't think so. You have a legitimate 1-2 punch in Sale and Quintana, but I don't see that. I see them completely falling back to earth when it comes to crunch time later this season, and we'll see what happens. They've had a lot of problems closing out games. The Twins are not as bad of a baseball team as indicated, I think, anyway. So maybe I'm just a little bit crazy, but I just think that they'll get on a hot streak here and get back within the division. It's going to tighten up. We still have a lot of games when it comes to this baseball season.
Hey,
They can at least claim fourth place. That's all I want. Like, let's shoot for fourth place.
Just don't finish last,
Let's
right?
shoot for fourth place this year.
just one thing here. I'm gonna make you do it. Let's pick World Series right now. Let's do it. Our early year World Series picks. Let's start with Daryl.
wow. Oh, sure. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to throw this out of a hat, and you just go ahead and make something happen here. You know, I'm going to kind of go just a division by division here. And I'm going to say that Boston will end up winning the East. I'm going to say Kansas City kind of pulls it back together. They'll end up winning the Central.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
As much as I don't want to, I can see the Rangers winning the West. So sticking in the AL, then I don't see a wild card team going on that tear. I see Boston probably advancing to the World Series. Not that I'm a Red
Big
Sox
Papi.
fan, but I'm just going with it.
Well, I'm kind of interested to hear what Tones has to say about the Cubs. I mean, the Cubs are the hottest team in the league?
Right.
Yeah, they're
They've cooled
28
down.
and they're 28-11 this season. They've done a really good job when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. They face a really good team in San Francisco coming up later on tonight on the West Coast, and they've been playing really, really good baseball. But the division is actually kind of tightening up a little bit. You say 6.5 and 7 games is not tightening up, but Pittsburgh and St. Louis are really, really good baseball teams. The National League, when you talk about the Nationals, the Cubs, the Pirates, the San Francisco Giants had a fantastic May, and the Dodgers, the top tier of those teams are really, really good because they boast really good pitching staffs. You have an ace for pretty much each and every one of those ball clubs, and also you have really good hitting and situational hitting with all those teams. I like the Cubs. The Cubs fan in me just says, just get to the World Series. You got to get past the NLCS. If you don't get past the NLCS, that is considered to me a failure this season. You got to get to the World Series, and you got to get past the NLCS. They've been playing really good baseball, and you have a starter in Jake Arrieta, and also a number 2 guy in Lester. But it all depends on how good Jason Hamill pitches the rest of the year too.
And
Tones,
do they pick
I just
someone
wanted
up?
to say, Tones, we were roommates for the last time I think the Cubs made a playoff run.
Aw.
Remember
Oh,
Steve?
man.
What was it? Steve Bartman.
Hey,
They-
2003.
Gonzalez.
Yeah.
I still curse his name.
Okay,
Everybody
I
hates
just-
Bartman. Everybody hates Bartman.
No,
but
it's not his fault. Come on.
No,
He would've done the
blame it
same.
on the air. It was those airs. Come on.
Exactly. I mean,
That guy had to move to Miami to get away from all the threats.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It was pretty embarrassing.
yeah.
Pretty embarrassing. Oh, it hurts.
Still hurts.
Still hurts. It'll hurt for the rest of my life. But you have a lot of things that have gone right for the Cubs so far with Theo and Jed, and doing a really good job of keeping the offensive
Keeping the Billy
talent
Goats
and
away from the ballpark.
Yes, got to keep the Billy Goat away from the ballpark.
So, Fern, what do you got?
I got to, like, as far as anything else, baseball, football, hockey, whatever, I really haven't paid attention to anything except for football. So my knowledge on everything is, so I'm just going to say the Twins will win the rest of the games and somehow make the playoffs and go to the World Series.
Twins,
and then
Braves, or
they'll play the second worst team.
the Braves?
Yeah, there we go. Twins, Braves, rematch of the '91 World Series.
Twins, Braves, World Series. I love it.
They're both
And
10
those
and
two
30.
were worst to first also, with like 90 to 91. So they'll do it. They'll do it halfway through the 2016 season, worst to first.
I love it.
It'd be great.
Miss you, buddy.
I miss you guys too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm kind of at work right now, so I think I should try to type more emails and
All right.
I gotta.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
we produce a lot of porno magazines here, so I gotta make sure
You got-
you're all lined up and everything.
You got the look for it, Ron. But
That's right. Hey, I know. That's why they hired me.
Hey, why don't you, hey, Fern, make sure you put San Diego on that top 20 drunkest cities list, okay? Come on.
Hey, I didn't write that list. I know all those lists were in the Midwest too. So I figured that's where most of the drinking is happening. So I figured that was a good topic to share.
Perfect. I love it. We'll talk about that later. But
And what was it? 12 out of the top 20 were in Wisconsin.
Yep.
Yes.
Or sorry, let me say it correctly. Wisconsin.
Oh, Fernando, we got to catch some touchdown passes.
No, we'll do it. Yeah. Hey, I'll be back in Minnesota in about a month. So if you guys can make it to the Twin Cities, we can maybe get a reunion of the Brown College Fighting Squirrels and throw some footballs around.
Sounds good. Sounds good, man. Hey,
Love it, buddy.
hey, we'll look forward to you joining us in the future as well on some podcasts. All right.
All right, perfect. Yeah, hopefully a day when I'm at home and I can, be more vulgar than I am now.
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
I'm being very PG right now.
Yeah,
you know?
you're fully clothed. That's just no fun.
It's disappointing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Love you, buddy.
See you, man.
All right, good talking to you guys. You guys have a good night.
You too.
You too.
Goal.
We love him.
We
love
love
him.
Fernando. You gotta
Former
love
roommate.
Fernando. Hey, now let's talk a little golf. Tones, you know a little golf, a few little things, right?
A little bit. Not much, but a little bit.
So let's take a look at the leaderboard for the Byron Nelson right now. You got Ben Crane in the lead at 12 under, which, Ben Crane, I like Ben Crane. He's part of the Golf Boys, with Ricky, Bubba, and Hunter. And you got
Yes.
Brooks Koepka, Jordan Spieth, Bud Cauley, Sergio Garcia all tied at 11 under. And then Wes Roach is at 10 under. Now, you got Dustin Johnson. He's 8 under. You got Matt Kuchar, 8 under as well. Jason Duffner, 7 under. Just some bigger names that are in the background there. Now, who do you feel could win this week, Tones?
I really do like what Ben Crane has done this week. He's at 12 under, obviously in the lead. Spieth has a nice bounce back week. He really had a tough time the last couple weeks, especially coming up really short at the Players. Really didn't play well at the Players, which is very surprising to me. I thought he'd come back and play really well at the Players, but he didn't. But Spieth and Crane, those are two names that, you don't hear a lot about Ben Crane, but Ben Crane is a really solid golfer.
Mm-hmm.
But Jordan Spieth, man, you really like the way he's playing golf this week at the Byron Nelson. That's what you want to continue to build on especially for him, coming up short at the Players, to build into the U.S. Open, which is coming up in just a little bit under a month.
Yeah. Well, bigger surprise last week, Jordan Spieth or Ricky Fowler not making the cut?
Ricky Fowler.
Yeah, I think so too.
I really thought that Ricky Fowler would play a lot better than he did.
The way he dominated on Sunday last year, it just surprised me. And then the shoes he had too coming out on Thursday, Tones. Those
Impressive.
Shoes. Yeah, I don't know, Daryl. Spieth or Fowler, which bigger surprise to you last week?
It's really hard to say, but I'm probably going to have to go with Fowler as well. But, the nice thing is when you look at, Spieth this past week, again, like you said, not making the cut again, then he turns around and ends up tying his best first round ever here at the Nelson. He got a 6 under there on a Thursday for day one. Again, he's right up there with the rest of them. So it's going to be interesting just, kind of see how that bounce back is. It's that mental aspect of the game. Of when you have that off day, can you go back and get yourself right?
I mean, and he had the debacle of hole 12 at the Masters, that, and I think that it's got to still be in your head, Tones, doesn't it? You're a golfer. You remember holes from 2 years ago, and it's like, man, it's still in your head when you hit a certain club or whatnot, or distance or whatever.
It is. Sometimes it still sets up in your head, especially if you go back to that course. I think of a lot of different players. You look at a Greg Norman at a Masters, falling short. That's one of the ones that sticks out in my mind the most when it comes to going back to a course that haunts you. Spieth has already won the Masters. So, I think he'll come back and do well when he comes back to the course again and next year at Augusta. But you look at going forward from that, the Players was the next one in line where I really thought that he would play well at, but obviously he didn't. He misses the cut, and we have to go to the Byron Nelson this week, which is a really difficult course. I know it doesn't look like it's difficult, but it's a difficult course, and it really tunes you up for the U.S. Open coming up in no less than a couple of weeks now, and that's what Spieth needs. Spieth needs a little bit of momentum to get himself back to square one where he needs to be going into the U.S. Open, because Jason Day, that guy right there, is absolutely 100% on fire right now.
Yeah.
He is on fire, and you want to be able to get to the level that he is at, get it going into the U.S. Open, which is coming up in a couple of weeks.
Oh, and he's kind of like Spieth was last year. Just you couldn't touch him. You just dominate every course, you dominate every tournament you're in, and you just don't let people touch you. And that's what Spieth did last year. And it's kind of Jason Day doing the same thing this year on the PGA Tour. I take a look at the Byron here. One guy I want to pick who's tied for second with 11 under is Sergio Garcia, but I can't. I can't pick Sergio Garcia to win because he's a choke artist. Year in, year out.
He is. He is a choke artist. Even though here's the deal with Sergio. Sergio's driver and his putter always comes up short with him.
Yep.
He is... whenever something is a pressure-packed situation, there's always a missed drive, or there's always a three-putt that lurks behind the corner of Sergio. And that's been Sergio's MO throughout his career. He has never been able to come up in a clutch situation, come up with a big drive, or come up with a big putt, or come up with a big shot to save himself. And, you look at all those guys when it comes to the Tiger years that have come up. Sergio Garcia is the guy that was supposed to be Tiger Woods' rival.
Yep.
Well, it never happened. It never pontificated because, he just wasn't able to get that big shot or that big putt or that big iron play to get him over the hump. And I just don't feel like, the length that these guys are putting out, like Spieth, like Day. You got a guy like Bubba. You got a really good player, Ben Crane, too, who can hit the ball a ton.
Yeah.
And Sergio doesn't have that type of length anymore. No. And it's just hard for him to keep up with the Joneses. And when you don't have one part of your game in a big moment to go to, that is really, really hurtful when it comes to playing on the PGA Tour, and especially playing in big events like majors. He has always come up short.
And you take a look, now you mentioned Tiger. Tiger is registered for the U.S. Open. Now, let me pose this question to both you, Daryl, first. Does Tiger play in the U.S. Open?
I have to say that he will be there. I'll be curious to see. I think for him, once he gets through that first round, we see how he does. If he's, in the middle of the pack, he'll come out that second round. But if you end up seeing him on Friday and he's struggling, he's not feeling it, I could see him just saying, I'm out. See ya. And take Saturday, Sunday off and just leave. Even if he would have made the cut, he's just been like, I'm done.
We've seen that in the past. Tones, what do you think?
I don't think he plays. I just don't think he is not. I don't think he is still right.
Yeah.
I really don't. I just don't think that his back is right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that he's in shape to hit shots that he needs to hit, and I don't think he's going to play.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to play this year. I really don't, and it's disappointing me as a Tiger fan. I love Tiger. Tiger is the guy that I grew up watching and idolizing when it comes to fantastic moments, and it's just done for him. I don't think that he can play anymore. No. He just doesn't have it in him.
See, now I think he'll play this year, and I do think he'll play at the U.S. Open. But I just don't see Tiger Woods being competitive in any tournament that involves other big stars. I do not see him being competitive with them because he just doesn't have it anymore. And when Tiger came into the game, he was the only guy hitting it over 300 yards. Now how many guys hit it over 300 yards? You know,
pretty much everybody.
Exactly. So the competition is higher now than it was back when Tiger was so dominant because he could hit it so much further, and that's why he has so many injuries and issues as well, because the crank and the torque he put on his body to hit it over 300 yards. So that's my thing on that. I don't think he'll be competitive in any other major. He will not break the record. He's not going to break Jack's record. That's not going to happen. Everybody thought, it's going to happen easily. Well, not now. He fell apart. His body has fallen apart.
One of the things in a really, really fascinating interview that was actually posted on ESPN.com, which documented Tiger's love of the military and his love of special forces units, and how it's just a fascinating. If you could Google this story, because it goes in depth and in length of Tiger's literal obsession of the military, because his dad was a military man, and how on numerous occasions he would not only, we talk about the mistresses and everything like that, but during that time he would basically go days on end to train on secluded military bases and do like these military raid training sessions. And he was addicted to it. Like, they have numerous people in accounts that he would go to these training facilities and train like it was like war games. And there's a story that came out with that the reason why he blew his knee out wasn't because of the torque, was because he blew his knee out doing these training sessions and these raids and wanting to go. He actually thought about, before he blew his knee out, before the U.S. Open, in this story, he said that he wanted to sign up for the Navy. At 34 years old, he wanted to sign up for the Navy and try to be a Navy SEAL. And it was just an incredible in-depth story of reporting. I can't remember the guy's name, but it was on ESPN.com. If you have time, if you have about 45 minutes of your time, it is an absolutely fascinating story on Tiger and on how, the psyche of him and how he's always been kind of a loner to himself and always kind of a literal geek, that, he doesn't really do well in social situations. And this was kind of his out, his unleashing this. He could care less about, he cared about golf, but he cared more about being some type of military Navy SEAL. And I thought it was just fascinating. You guys, I really tell the listeners out there, just read the story. It was fascinating.
I'll put that on Disagree to Disagree Facebook page.
Yes, absolutely fascinating. I will link it on the Facebook page. It was probably one of the more fascinating stories I've read this year.
Yeah.
When it comes to me, I love Tiger, and I you don't want to say you idolize an athlete, but that's what really. I played golf before Tiger, but that's what really got me into golf.
Yeah, and you look at Tiger Woods, and I'm on the other spectrum. Never liked Tiger Woods. I respect him, but I never liked him. And that's how it is with Tiger Woods, though, Tones, and you know that. It's love or hate. There's no in between with Tiger Woods. Daryl, I don't know your opinion on Tiger Woods, but it is. It's a love or hate. I dislike the guy, and Tones loves him. What's your opinion on that?
Well, and I'm going to kind of just take the middle here of, it was never really one way or another, but it's a phrase that I've heard other sportscaster, sports talk journalists say is he moves the needle, and that's the truth.
Yep, he sells.
It was the idea, of this love-hate that you two, again, split on, is the fact that you would watch for the simple fact that if he was in, the hunt on a Sunday, come Monday, that's what people would be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, we don't really have, I guess, that character anymore. That
not in golf, for sure, no.
Not, at least not as prevalent as of one that he was. Again, that was kind of a transcendent, if you will, as he kind of took golf from, you had the stars of the 70s into the 80s, and then it was a wash where almost you could look at any number of guys on the PGA, and they would almost all look the same to you. And then all of a sudden, here's someone in his early 20s, in late teens, coming on, going to be the next great thing, and actually living up to the hype for a solid decade. And people are suddenly drawn to that, and it gets you in, it gets you involved. And now that, again, with his personal life and how his professional play has slipped as well, you get into this mode now of he's an afterthought. We don't even realize that's probably been since the incident with his wife, 5 years ago.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
And I kind of look at Tiger Woods, with PGA, and I tell me I'm wrong on this, but I think LeBron James is kind of that guy too. I mean, he's the hero or he's hated. It's that way with the NBA too, Tones. I think LeBron's that guy in the NBA.
LeBron moves the needle, and he will always move the needle. It's kind of been a weird thing with Tiger, and we'll get to the NBA in a second. But it's a weird thing with Tiger because he took golf from, let's say, and we'll be honest with this, an elitist sport. It was known as the average man, the average player, couldn't play golf. And then he brought it into the mainstream where everybody was like, oh, well, maybe I could be the next Tiger Woods. The Nike campaign of I want to be like Tiger Woods was transcendent. And it was something that, I wanted to be Tiger Woods. I wanted to be able to hit the ball 300 yards. I want to be able to, make unbelievable putts or make unbelievable sand shots or make unbelievable shots and have the glory and win green jackets and win trophies. And I think that, he changed the game when it came to guys getting in shape, guys having to put muscle on their body, because we all knew what golf was before Tiger. It was guys like John Daly, fat guys that were not in shape, that were not the regular Joe could go out and walk out there and hit the ball. And he changed that. And now competition is almost like you see Tiger go away and you have 20 to 30 to even 40 guys now that can hit shots like Tiger.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that has been so fascinating to watch when golf post-Tiger has been these guys like Spieth, like Day, that can really, really hit the ball far away and hit shots that you can't even fathom. Like, you're saying to yourself, 190-yard 7-iron is ridiculous. That I can't even fathom hitting a 7-iron 190 yards.
Well,
Not even close.
And I'm just going to throw this in there as well. As now we're kind of at that point, because when we start talking about, the emergence of Tiger was definitely the early 2000s, late 90s, and now that we're starting to reach that point generationally where those younger players who are coming up now, who are in their early to mid 20s, were around that age of, say, 10, that they could see Tiger when he was on the upswing, when he was becoming kind of the thought of the next legend in the world of golf. And now you have those guys who were, that impressionable youth at age 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 over the past 10 to 15 years who've worked on their craft and have basically tried to imitate and then advance themselves that same way. And now we're at that level where we have a core of younger golfers, but unfortunately there's not necessarily one standout that we can be pointed to. 2 years ago, it was Rory McIlroy. Last year was Jordan Spieth. Not sure who it could be this year if it is going to be a younger player. Again, there's not that, I guess, individual person that separates themselves to put them in that limelight of the loved or hated.
Yeah.
Which just more or less you kind of get the flavor of the week, the flavor of the season, if you will.
And last thing about golf here, we're going to move on, but I just want to mention about golf. The reason everybody can hit it 300 yards is technology. I mean, look at what they've done to drivers, look what they've done to irons, and look what they've done to golf balls to make them fly farther. And the thing I want to see, I would love to see, is Tiger Woods swing Jack's driver and see what he can do with it. I mean, you ever use one of those old wood drivers, though? I've used one. You can't hit that thing straight. You can't.
My first clubs were actually wood drivers. I had wood drivers, and they were unbelievably difficult to hit. But, Tiger, that's what he used back in the day. I mean, that's what he had. He didn't have a metal driver. He used wood drivers, and, he eventually his dad was able to get him a metal driver. But I think that if you put a wood driver in front of him, I think he'd hit it fine. I wouldn't even flinch to think that he wouldn't be able to hit it. It's difficult, but that's the reason why he has talent, is because he's able to hit clubs that normally people wouldn't hit consistently.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to move on to a new segment we have. It's going to be called Deep Thoughts with Daryl.
Oh, boy.
Ooh.
So what's going to happen here, Tones, is Daryl's going to just think up something for us, and we're going to have to shed some light on it.
Okay.
I had one of two options here, and I'm going to go with my basketball option. And you may not have noticed this if you don't follow the NBA or don't even necessarily care about teams in your area, but did you realize that during this basketball season, the 2015-2016 season, 40% of head coaches lost their job? Think about that for a second. Out of 30 positions, 12 of them were let go at some point during the year. We've got, and you're sitting there, you start thinking through something, you're like, wait, really? Dave Blatt with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And he was let go during the season. Randy Whitman with the Washington Wizards. Mm-hmm. Jeff Hornacek with the Suns, who recently was reported to get the deal with the Knicks. Kevin McHale with the Houston Rockets. Frank Vogel with the Indiana Pacers. George Karl in Sacramento. Lionel Hollins in Brooklyn. Byron Scott with the Lakers. Derek Fisher with the Knicks. Sam Mitchell in the Timberwolves. Since Greg Popovich became the coach of the Spurs in 1996, there have been 233 coaching changes throughout the rest of the league. After Popovich, the next longest tenured coach in the NBA, Miami's Eric Spoelstra, and the Mavericks' Rick Carlisle. Carlisle got a 5-year extension this past fall. So this begs me to ask the question, does it matter who's running the bench in the NBA? With 40%, nearly half the league decided, you know what, the guy at the helm, we're just going to get ready to bring someone else in. Does coaching matter in the NBA?
Whew. Brad, I'm going to let you take this one first. Give me a second.
Hey, thanks, Tones. Appreciate it. Appreciate you letting me go first on this one. I I have a hard time with the NBA, and that's because there's so much ego in the NBA. There's ego in every sport, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to basketball, there's only 5 guys on a court at the time. And if you have one guy whose ego is bigger than everyone's, well, that ball is going to stay with him. He's going to do what he wants to do with that ball. On a football field, there's 11 guys. If some guy has an ego, that'll get put in check by the defense, by an offensive lineman not blocking or whatnot. But baseball, yeah, that really can't affect you because they'll just strike out and that's 1 out. But when it comes to the NBA, I have a hard time believing in coaching in the NBA because there are so many good coaches that lose jobs, and a prime example is Cleveland, and I think this goes to LeBron factor, as LeBron just wants to run the team himself. And there was just an article released, I don't know if you guys saw that recently, but it was early in the year, or it was kind of early when Tyronn Lue took over. LeBron James was telling everybody, do this, do this, do this, and Tyronn Lue looks at LeBron and says, shut the F up. And their season kind of clinched together. Cleveland kind of made it. And look what they're doing in the playoffs. They are dominating their opponents in the playoffs. And I have a hard time in this. It's so tough because does coaching matter? Somewhat, but it's based on the players you have. Like, look at Greg Popovich. He has players that work for him, and that's why he's so successful, is because he has a good group around him. I think if you get a bad egg, it doesn't matter who the coach is, that egg is going to ruin that coach and ruin that team, and that's how I feel about that. And I just feel San Antonio is so good every year because of coaching and because you had Tim Duncan there, Mr. Emotionless or motionless, whatever he is, and I don't. That's a tough one, but I don't think coaching matters in the NBA. I don't.
See, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that because you look at, and this is a great example of this. What happened with the Golden State Warriors before Steve Kerr? They had Mark Jackson as their coach, fiery coach, defensive-minded. The problem with Mark Jackson was that he didn't open up the offense enough to let Steph Curry be the point guard. He let Steph Curry be the shooting guard way too much. So I think that having a different frame set for the way the NBA is played right now, which is pace and space, which is corner threes, which is shooting the ball on the outside, Steve Kerr was the perfect pick for that team because he had that mindset of being able to convey to his players the ability to have pace and space. Now, you have other coaches in the league, and I'm going to put Tom Thibodeau at the top of my list when it comes to guys that didn't get the pace and space mindset. Defensive coach, fantastic guy when it comes to being a guy that able to get players buy into the defensive scheme. He is a defensive coaching wizard. But the problem with him has always been playing guys way too much during the regular season. Now, I don't know how effective or defective it is, but you look at the players in the past that have kind of succumbed to injuries because of that, and the biggest guy that I can think of is Luol Deng. Luol Deng is a shell of his former self. Because of Tom Thibodeau and having to play him, he was playing 42 minutes a game at one point. Over 40 minutes a game. And there has to be a definite, when you talk about ego, there has to be a cohesion. Being able to manage ego, but also having that guy that does have a little bit of ego that you can give the ball to and say, okay, this is what I need you to do, and I need you to get it done. And that's what I think the Golden State Warriors have done so well this season.
Now, do you think Steve Kerr could coach DeMarcus Cousins? I don't think he's a coachable player. I just don't. And I see that in the NBA. There's a lot of those players that I don't think are coachable.
I disagree with you, and I don't see that. Yeah. I just don't see that. And as much as you see that, I've watched so much NBA this season, and I just don't see you're going to have guys that have egos on that team. Pretty much every person on that team has an ego.
Mm-hmm.
Every person wants the ball. Every person has to have the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the coach's job to be able to manage that ego and being able to manage star players and role players.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put, I would say this right now, if Boston is able to somehow use their picks and use their assets to get Boogie Cousins on the Celtics, I think the only guy that I can think of actually two guys that I can think of. Let's go three. Steve Kerr, Brad Stevens, and more than likely, I would have to say Popovich. Those three guys are the only three guys that I can think of that can coach Boogie Cousins.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong, but those three guys that I can think of that can convey what they need to do to get Boogie to unleash an unbelievable talent.
Oh,
This guy
he's amazing.
is a phenomenal basketball player.
He is. I agree, and I guess I have a hard time with it. I just there's players that stick out in my mind, and then they just seem like a sore thumb that it's just they're not coachable, and I feel that way about a few players. Now, I guess Scott Brooks in Oklahoma City. I don't understand why he got fired. I don't get that one. I still don't understand that one.
I do. He was a terrible coach in the crunch time. Absolutely terrible when it came to drawing up plays. The problem with Scott Brooks was that he wasn't able to get Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook on the same page.
Well, and then you had James Harden in there too.
When it was needed. And that's the thing that got Scott Brooks fired. He was never able to unleash Russell Westbrook the way Billy Donovan has been able to do it.
Is that a thing where kind of corralling egos? Is that what Scott Brooks lacked, do you think, maybe a little too? Because you did have a Kevin Durant, you had a Russell Westbrook, and you had a James Harden who, I don't know. Harden's a great scorer, don't get me wrong. Defense, he looks about like me playing in a pickup game, but, you know, but
you look at, I mean, it's hard for me. You know, Scott Brooks just got hired in Washington, and you look at, you know, the Washington connection. Washington has a lot of cap space. You know, they're trying to go for KD. They're desperately trying to get KD to come to Washington.
And I heard he doesn't want to go there.
There's been conflicting reports about that, and I think KD is going to do I think he's going to do exactly what LeBron does. Mm-hmm. That's 1 year, and he'll keep on doing 1 year at the max amount of money that he can get until he finds something that he may like or he may not like. He may stay in Oklahoma City, but there's a lot of teams that are going to have a lot of cap space that are willing to pay for a guy like Kevin Durant, and we're still a year and a half away from this. You know, it's not like he's going to be a free agent tomorrow. You know, we're still a year and a half away from seeing a lot of these guys have big paydays, and we talk about what's going to be happening this coming off season with the payroll going up because of the TV contracts. We are going to see Harrison Barnes. If we live in a world where Harrison Barnes is upwards to $120 to $150 million for 5 years, that's where it's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
because Harrison Barnes is not worth $150 million.
No, he's not. No, I agree.
But because of the marketplace, that's what's going to happen. And it's going to be really interesting to see in this offseason how teams use their cap space and use their cap space wisely to get guys, because salaries are going up, and they're going to go up a lot.
Yeah.
You're going to see a guy like Steph Curry in 2 years make $140 million off of 3 years or 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's going to be close to 210, which I've seen numbers floating around 210 for 6. So it's fascinating, the coaching aspect of it when it comes to the NBA, because you have coaches that are dead man walking. And I look at a couple of guys, especially Lionel Hollins. He got put in a terrible situation where he wasn't going to win.
Yeah.
The Brooklyn Nets are terrible. They're a terrible team. And the Cleveland Cavaliers with David Blatt, LeBron didn't like him. He didn't like that pick. He wanted Mark Jackson.
Yeah.
What about you, Daryl?
I was going to say, I've got an interesting perspective on this. And you look at some of these coaches, again, they're usually in that 3 to 4 year window. And a lot of these teams are kind of looking to make that move to get that next star. And you get a lot of the one and dones from college. And you look at some of these players that it may take maybe 3 to 4 years for them to develop to get to that a pro-ready stage. And again, by the time that third or fourth year rolls around, your time may be up, and the fans, the organization, whatever the pressure's coming from, if you're suddenly not performing at the level that they like, you're gone, and you've just spent 3 years trying to build up someone who is now going to be a good player after you leave. Interesting thought with that is when you look at some of the key pieces, especially with a team like Golden State, you had Steph Curry, who spent 3 seasons at Davidson. You had Draymond Green, who had he spent, I believe it was 4 years at Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Iguodala had, I think, 3 or 4 seasons at Arizona. Bogut played in Australia first and went to Utah for a bit. Again, he's got experience. They have guys in Klay Thompson, another one. I think he spent 3 or 4 seasons at Washington State. Now, we may not have known who they were at the time, but they came in already somewhat more mature than some of these other players who are 19, 20 years old. So when they come into the league and they're already set to adapt with 3-4 years experience underneath their belt at a collegiate level, now all of a sudden those guys are a little bit easier to make that mold in my mind, because I think they're at the maturity levels there, the physical characteristics are there, they understand their body a bit more. It's, when you're 18, 19, 20, you can do a lot of things. When you're 23, 24, 25, you can't maybe not do the exact same thing you did. So it's interesting just to see how the fact that those different parts of it come together, and that's where I think when we get to the idea of the coaching, do I feel that the coaches necessarily have as much of an influence? To me, it's almost like a frontline HR position for a lot of these coaches. It's not necessarily that you're trying to show them how to play the game. You're looking at your philosophy and wanting to implement your philosophy, but you also have to realize that the talent has to match what you're trying to implement. And then at that same time, it's that, again, when you talk about that ego aspect, how do you continue this balance? We can sit there and look at numbers all day. That's the great thing about sports. Hundreds of numbers, you can all these statistics, but there isn't necessarily a way to measure mental statistics. Where are these people on a mental balance scale that, there's chemistry? Can it work? Can it not work? Even with Shaq and Kobe, when they were winning, playing great, at the end of it, they didn't like each other. So,
yeah. And now they're friends and whatever. But
I do have another question, Daryl, and this is the thing that kind of has come up. You look at GMs in the league, especially you have bad GMs that don't put pieces together for you to match that style. I think that's another aspect of it. And when it comes to a team not being able to ascend like they want to, and I look at one team that just sticks out like a sore thumb is the Brooklyn Nets, and having a guy like Billy King as your GM, and wanting to sell your future for 3 players like Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and a couple other guys that they and Joe Johnson, and not having the resources to back that up. And if you're a terrible evaluator and you have a coach that has a certain style, you're not evaluating those players the way they need to be evaluated to fit that style, you're already in the hole. And Brooklyn, you have a number of different teams. Brooklyn is one of them. Also, another team that has just been a complete train wreck, and that's Sacramento. Sacramento doesn't know what the hell they are doing.
No.
Whatsoever. They have an owner that is completely clueless when it comes to evaluating talent. And it is embarrassing, especially as an NBA fan, to watch Sacramento play basketball. And the way they play basketball.
Would you say the same with the Knicks?
They don't play basketball.
Would you say the same with the Knicks then as well? I mean, or is their problem pretty much surrounded by Carmelo Anthony?
And also not having any draft picks for 5 years.
Yeah.
That's hurt them a lot. They did get a nice draft in Porzingis. And I think with Jeff Hornacek, getting away, and this is where a lot of the Knicks fans have really kind of gone against Phil Jackson, is because of the archaic system of the triangle, which doesn't work. The triangle is such a complicated offense, and it only works if you have really good players like Kobe or like Kobe and Shaq, or like Michael and Scotty and Bill Cartwright and some of the other players on the Bulls teams. It's not very conducive when it comes to the pace and space game. But I think Phil Jackson really kind of did something that I don't think was necessarily outside of the box, but a lot of New York fans are pissed at him when it came to not hiring one of their own, like a Patrick Ewing. They really wanted Patrick Ewing. They really wanted Mark Jackson. They aren't going to get those guys because those guys are defensive coaches with an offensive system that need to be upgraded. And I think Jeff Hornacek is a great hire because he did so well in Phoenix. Yes, the career record is terrible. But that 1 year where that team was injury-free, he won 30-plus games with a pace and space offense. And I think looking outside the triangle for the Knicks, as president and as GM for Phil Jackson, it was a great – I think if they can get Jeff Hornacek, which if the reports are true, that's a fantastic hire for that team.
And something that you've mentioned it a couple times, and it's stuck with me, and it's a comparison I would like to draw just between the sports, between basketball and football. And you talk about the different styles of play, and the pace and space that we talk about, and it's part of the job and role of these different GMs, presidents that kind of look at these different trends in the game. And when we look at what Golden State's doing with the ball now, what even Cleveland did the other night when they were just lobbing up threes and just draining them, and it's realizing that there are these trends that can change the game, the way the game is played, the way you need to kind of work your offense. And I'll draw the comparison to the early to 99, 2000 with The Greatest Show on Turf, when all of a sudden you had a team like with Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce and all that. And again, Kurt Warner's throwing for 4,000 yards.
Yeah.
Suddenly, 10 years later, 4,000 yards is considered a good season, when 4,000 yards was a benchmark that, very few quarterbacks, that puts you in an elite category.
Yeah.
The game changed and the progression changed, and suddenly it's the rest of the league having to catch up to that style of play.
And moving to the NFL, and one of the stories that, you look at the maturation of what happened with those teams and with the Rams and The Greatest Show on Turf. Another thing that kind of made its way into the lexicon was the ability for quarterbacks not being able to be physical with the wide receivers.
Yeah.
And that's where you kind of seen the jump in offensive numbers, and that's what you've seen. And I want to segue to this because I want to talk about this week. The segue of the quarterback being the most important player on an NFL roster, the absolute 100% most important player on the roster, having to have a competent, really good quarterback that you have to draft. And and not only that, having wide receivers that are fast enough to get away from quarterbacks that want to jam at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and Tones, I'm going to tell you, let's save that for next time because that'll be a good talking point. I think a little teaser there on the most important and valuable position on an NFL team. And I agree with you, though. The league has kind of made it more of a pass-heavy league itself by the rule changes as well, and I think that's kind of what the NFL has done, but that's good to talk about at a later date. But I say we kind of bring this one to a little rest tonight, and we've had a good night, but let's talk about this survey here that was done by the Wall Street Journal, top 20 drunkest cities, and we can tie this into sports because you look at number 20, Corvallis, Oregon. Well, that's Oregon State Beavers. They're there. That's probably a good reason why that sounds up on the top 20. Number 19, Iowa City, home of the Hawkeyes. And then you take a look at Lincoln, Nebraska. And you got Milwaukee, Janesville, Racine, Grand Forks, North Dakota, College Town, Missoula, Montana, Sheboygan, Wausau, Mankato, Eau Claire, Ames, Iowa, go Cyclones. Fond du Lac at number 7, La Crosse at number 6, Fargo at number 5, Madtown, where Tones says he still has a headache from that night in Madison. And number 3 is Green Bay. Number 2 is Oshkosh. And number 1 is Appleton. 12 out of the 20 drunkest cities in America are in Wisconsin. 4 out of the top 5 are in Wisconsin as well.
Congratulations, guys.
Beer, cheese, and brats.
You guys, beer and cheese, and more beer. You guys know how to do it. I say my Madison experience, though, I wouldn't trade my Madison experience for anything. I'm not a fan of the U of M, but damn it, those guys know how to frickin' party. It was a fun time, probably one of the more fun times I've been when it comes to a college campus. And I've been to the U of I, I've been to the U of M, I've been to Iowa City, I've been to Indiana, but the U of M was a really, really fun town.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, Madison this year, and Daryl knows this too by looking at the schedule. I think we have 2 night games this year.
They have, yes.
So it's just going to be wicked, and they kind of went away from night games in Madison for reasons, But there's going to be a 2 night games this year in Madison and Big Ten conference play. I believe one of them was Ohio State.
I believe
correct,
one
Daryl?
of them is Ohio State. If I get a second here to bring up the schedule, I know Ohio State is one of them. The other one, I'm trying to remember here, Nebraska is also an evening kickoff. And here's the thing. I've been to Madison for early games, afternoon games, late games. It doesn't matter.
No.
They start the tailgate party at 7 a.m. It doesn't matter if kickoff is 11:30,
but I get that.
2:30, or 7.
But Daryl, you take that 7 a.m. drinking and partying and having fun until 7 p.m. when it get kickoff. That's 12 solid hours you got under you, Daryl. It's some good time to get loosened
I've been
up.
at tailgates where they start at 4 a.m. And with the game starting at 4.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie. When you get to about 11 o'clock and you're smelling the food and all that other stuff, and you get to a pretty solid amount, the double-digit in beers, you're like, oh God, am I going to be able to make it to the game? Because this is bad. Like, I've tried to pace myself, and it just tastes so good going down that it just all the things are going to the wind, and it just gets bad. When it gets to like 3 o'clock, you don't really remember going to the stadium. That's when college football rears its ugly head. We love it, though. It's a fun time.
Oh, it is worth it.
We sure do. And any final words and anything, any topic we want to bring up next week, Daryl?
Final words and topics to bring up. Actually, my final word here is something while I happened to be perusing the internet throughout the show here. We can discuss this next week as well, but I see a headline that Pornhub, the adult entertainment website, has launched a new exercise program. Yes, Bang Fitness Program.
Sign me up!
So, Bang Fit from a Pornhub. Now, I guess I should be doing more stretching probably before I get involved in any of these activities.
We definitely got to have Borno in on that one.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
I mean, when the doctor asks if you're sexually active, my reply is usually, I just lay there.
Hey, it's the best. Hey, it's the best though. It's the best. You're just laying there. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything.
So I think at some point, any one of us who has no problem looking up Pornhub's Bang Fit program, and maybe we can get some displays set up. We'll get like a Ken doll and a Barbie doll, and we'll, figure out what, we need to do some crunches.
Awesome. That's phenomenal.
So if we sound winded the next time we do one of these shows, hopefully it's from our own exercising. Not necessarily, not with each other.
Got you. My final thoughts, guys, is coming up the next time we talk about this. We're going to discuss the absence of when it comes to second, third, and fourth year quarterbacks that have just come out of the draft and their ability not to find work and the reason why. And it was a fascinating article I read earlier this week, and I'm excited to talk about that in a future podcast.
And I believe we'll probably be talking about the NBA Finals because there's a good chance it'll be wrapped up. I believe the Eastern Conference will for surely be wrapped up by the next time we talk to you. That'll probably be over this weekend. I think Tone's right. Maybe Monday?
Probably.
There's a good chance for that. So we'll probably talk NBA Finals. And what I want to do is let's look at this listener interactive. Comment. Message us on Facebook. Let us know what you want us to talk about, and we'll gladly talk about whatever topic you want to. If it's sports related or not, I don't care. If you want to talk about my golf game, we can. I'll talk about my golf game. That's fine. I had 2 birdies last Sunday, but we won't talk about the other 7 holes. But, it's that's just how it goes. I think that's what it really is, man. I want the listener interaction, and I want to know what you guys want to hear about. We got a little long period in between waits here, but, things happen. We got lives and families and all that fun jazz. We live in hospitals, and it just happens to people. We get busy. So that's why we took so long to get to you. And we wanted to have a polished product, and we'll go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and get you that. And we'll definitely be talking about the U.S. Open before that happens because I'm a huge golf fan. Tones is a golf nerd, and Daryl likes to bet on golf. So, it all kind of...
No. If you're going to say it right. I like to lose.
You like to lose money to me in betting on golf. But, yeah, guys, it's been great talking to you again tonight. I look forward to the near future, and, we'll do that in the near future.